Hi everyone, welcome to a special episode of Return on Wellness, where today we're going beyond the bar to talk about something I'm passionate about, the importance of sober inclusive events. I'm David V. Stevens, your virtual host, and I'm here to unpack how true inclusivity at gatherings isn't just about checking a box. It's about making sure every guest feels seen and valued, whether they're sipping a craft cocktail or a carefully crafted mocktail. We'll explore the difference between genuine non-alcoholic offerings and half-hearted efforts, and I'll show you why intentionality in your event choices leads to richer connections and greater return on wellness. Plus, expect some laughs and honest insights along the way. Let's redefine what it means to host with purpose.
Aloha, welcome to Return on Wellness, a web series brought to you by Olympian Meeting.
Live from Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club in Las Vegas, Nevada, welcome to Beyond the Bar, presented by Caesars Entertainment and other agency in partnership with SEMA. I am DJ Graffiti, the keynote DJ. And now, here's your host, David T. Stevens.
Thank you everybody. You're making me blush a little bit. Welcome tonight. I'm your host, David T. Stevens. I know what you're probably all thinking. Oh my God, they gave a guy who does burpees for fun his own show. Oh, wow. Okay, it's gonna be that kind of crowd tonight. All right, well, or a guy who does push-ups for fun, his own show. DJ Graffiti. He did the push-up challenge with me today, as well as Anka and a number of other people in the audience. TJ, how are your arms?
Okay, 210 push-ups in 20 minutes, and DJing don't go together, right? Don't go together. I feel like Andrew, I'm like, push-ups were a bad choice.
We're gonna call you DJ T-Rex tonight, probably. All right, as you can tell, there's going to be a lot of bad jokes. We're really leaning into this comedy club vibe, and we want to have a great time tonight. So thank you all for coming out. We are going to have some amazing conversation. We have some incredible guests. We're going to talk about some meaningful things. And a big thank you to one of our prime sponsors here, Loverboy. Yeah, give it up for Loverboy. They have made sure that everybody in this room, regardless of your drinking preference, gets to hold a can like everybody else. And that's a nice feeling, right? Yeah. Okay, all right. Do we have some non-drinkers here? I'm guessing we do, yeah. Okay, so you guys know what it feels like to not feel like you belong. Where they're like, oh, we have soda and we have water, as opposed to giving you an actual non-alcoholic beverage. So, I got a question for the crowd, and DJ Graffiti, maybe you can, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this. And I'm curious what the crowd thinks, maybe you can just yell it out, it's totally fine. What's the difference between a non-alcoholic beverage and a mocktail? Thoughts? Nothing? You got nothing?
I mean, that's why I'm here, honestly. I want to know. I want to know things like that by the time I leave.
Okay, and you will. Anybody, any guesses from the crowd?
Ingredients.
No difference. Ingredients, etc. You know what it is? Somebody just yelled it out. Intention. Okay, now, and I want to tell you why that makes a difference. Thank you, and thank you for being here. So, I posted on LinkedIn a couple days ago. I was really excited about the fact that there had been an increase in mocktails on the IMEX show floor. I got a bunch of responses, and I chased down every lead that was in that list of comments. Total leads, there was only 5. So every lead, every single one I went to. I wanted to see what they were offering. So one of them was a suspect lead. They didn't have anything. They had wellness food, which meant it was all plant-based and vegan, which doesn't necessarily mean it's wellness, because if there's a ton of fat in it, it's not good for you anyways. By the way, oh, I should back up. Today is Wednesday. Did you know what that means?
Hey.
Okay,
Wellness.
sure. Thanks, Goko.
Wellness washing.
Wellness Washing Wednesday. So for those of you who don't know me, or you're like, who is this idiot on stage? I'm sorry, it's going to be a long night. But every Wednesday on LinkedIn, I post a Wellness Washing Wednesday post. And that's really about people who are leveraging wellness for marketing instead of doing it with intentionality. So buckle up, it's going to be a live rant, but I'm not going to name names, but I am going to throw some anonymous people under the bus. So here we go. All right. Okay, so lead number one didn't have any mocktails. Actually, they didn't even have anything non-alcoholic at all. All they had was their wellness food, and that was it, and booze and coffee. Coffee, I guess, is non-alcoholic, but you know, who wants to drink coffee at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, especially if you're sensitive to caffeine? Okay, all right, fair enough. Are you sensitive to caffeine?
Yes. But? No.
But you didn't raise your hand. Okay, all right. So, I chased down the next lead, and I got there, and I said, oh, great, what's the mocktail? And they're like, oh, it's pineapple juice and jalapeno. And I was like, anything else? And they said, no. I said, so it's basically an agua fresca? And they're like, yeah, it's an agua fresca. So it's not a mocktail. Because it already has the name agua fresca. You can't just call it a mocktail when it already has another name. Okay, so that was number 2. I went to number 3, and number 3 was, well, they said they had mocktails. They said they had a signature beverage, and it was either alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and they called it a mocktail. So I asked what was in it, and they're like, oh, it's raspberry lemonade. So it's raspberry lemonade and not a mocktail. Well, I guess. Yeah, okay, all right. So you put vodka in it and it becomes a cocktail. Okay, all right, so that's number 3. Number 4, I went to somebody, I was really excited by this one, and somebody tagged them and like promoted it and whatnot. I was like, all right, I'm excited about this one. I go to the bar and I say, what do you have for non-alcoholic mocktails, etc.? And they're like, we got soda and water. I'm sorry, what? I was told there would be mocktails. Oh, well, we have soda and water. Oh, okay, cool, I'm gonna go. Finally, I went to the wonderful people at Caesars. Let's give it up for Caesars, they helped pay for this. I went to their booth and they had a genuine mocktail. They had their Honest BS. Yeah, I'm gonna let that name sink in for a second. Honest BS mocktail that had spirit-free bourbon, ashwagandha, a little bit of lime juice, and it was served in a martini glass. Thank you, yes. Here's the best part. It was sitting next to their alcoholic cocktails in martini glasses. So tonight's not just about trying to make a case for one or the other. Tonight is about inclusion. That's why tonight's night was called the Sober Inclusive Happy Hour. And it's not a dry event. If you want to drink, have a drink. And just choose the one that works for you. It's not either or, it's yes and. So I want to give a big round of applause to Caesars for doing it right and being the only mocktail on the entire IMEX show floor, which is a 100% improvement year over year from last year when there was absolutely this many 0. So we're making progress, and let alone people understand the value of it, because 4 people claim they had mocktails when they just served juice. So it's okay, we'll get there. That's why we're having discussions and meaningful discussions like we're having tonight. So, like any good late night talk show, we gotta go to a commercial break. Thought I'd let that sink in. So, our first commercial is gonna come from the one and only Caesars and Kim Aminette. Kim, come on out. Kim? Okay.
How's everyone doing tonight? Thank you all for coming and joining us today here at the Jimmy Kimmel Comedy Club. I am very excited to be here tonight to talk about wellness. Wellness is a huge topic, not only for our company, but for our industry, right? Everyone is talking about wellness. Now, Dave said a lot of great things about what we have done in our booth today and throughout the week at IMEX, but that's not the only thing that we've been doing in the wellness realm. So last year, we actually started doing a wellness challenge, and we started that on the Global Wellness Day. So that was an amazing event that we did, and we've continued to push that out all through the year. We also, for those of you who may have joined us for this, but this past June, we had our inaugural Wellness Forum, where we were able to do all sorts of healthy initiatives. We did hiking, we did rafting, we did so many different things. We brought in some wellness practitioners, we brought in healthy menus, and we continue to do that throughout our properties all over the country. Speaking of, I don't know if any of you know this, but we have over 50 properties throughout the country. We have 9 here in Las Vegas, including the Caesars Forum. We have 3 properties in Atlantic City, and we also have 5 properties in the Reno, Lake Tahoe area. So we have a lot of amazing properties that have that wellness menu, that have the wellness initiatives that we have been talking about. So I hope that you guys have a wonderful evening tonight. We have a great panelist, and thank you all for coming. Thank you so much.
Thanks for taking the microphone down, Kim. I appreciate that. All right, up next for our second commercial break, because we're going to get all the ads out of the way at the beginning. It's okay. It'll be quick. It'll be easy. It'll be painless. Hey, but before we do that, DJ, do you want to do a remix, or do you not want to do a remix? I hear DJ is a fan of remixes.
I mean, it's up to everybody out there.
Do you guys want to hear a remix? Okay, we'll play it for the next one. Well, all right, so.
I want to incorporate everybody out there. Okay. So when we talk about inclusion, that means you all have to participate, right? So I need you all to yell out some artists, and I'm going to mix 2 of them together.
Hold on. Make it random, like crazy, like someone you've never even.
Say it.
Yeah,
Yell it out.
Meatloaf.
Radiohead.
Frank Sinatra.
Grateful Dead.
Good Lord.
Nirvana. All right, Nirvana.
You got something to work with there?
I got too much to work with there. We're gonna start with Nirvana though.
Okay, all right. We're gonna give him a second to work on that. Up next, I would like to thank the wonderful people at SEMA for partnering with us on this event, the Corporate Event Marketing Association, which I would like to have. I know a lot of you in this room because of that association, so I'm a big fan. Richard Steno is here. Richard, do you want to come on out?
I am so excited about open mic night. All right, here we go. Let's hear it for my SEMA members. Go. Let me hear you. SEMA, yeah. Raise your hand if you're not a SEMA member. Okay, well, shit, that's a lot of people. So SEMA is a great organization. We believe in community, we believe in belonging, and we absolutely believe in education. So we're excited to have this panel. Thrilled to be a piece of this. There's no way to thank other and Caesars Entertainment enough. I was picked to do this because I'm a board member, just a lowly member who volunteered to be on the board, and it's been some of the greatest experience of my life. So if you're not involved with SEMA, get involved. And if you are a member, we've got board openings. Come talk to me. I'd love to do that. You're not here for me. Thank you for being here tonight. Let's get this kicked off. Have a great evening. Woo!
Okay. Now things are going to get real. All right, we're going to start this panel because you didn't come here to hear my bad attempt at stand-up. But if you are tired of it, there's going to be a 7-city Caesars Roadshow that's going to be happening. So make sure you reach out to Kim Amonette and get on that list, and I get to host it. I'm pretty excited about it. So, well, geez, that was unexpected, and thank you. Okay, so shall we start to introduce our panelists?
Wait, are we going to get the remix in first?
Yeah,
Real quick?
Let's do the remix.
Let's do the remix.
Some energy, because that was a lame-ass excitement for our panelists.
Right. We got to do better for our panelists. So, okay.
Let's get the energy up.
You all are throwing me out the window. I'm going to try to pump your energy up just a little bit because you got to do better for the panelists. Hold on.
Oh!
All right. I heard Nirvana and I heard Prince, so I'm going to try to do those two together.
I hope you can hear this. Let's give it up for DJ Graffiti.
All right, that's enough. All right, now are you sufficiently ready to make noise for the panelists now? That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, first, you may know him from Bravo TV's Summer House. You also might know him from these beverages called Loverboy. You guys are quiet, wow, okay, all right. Regardless, his name is Carl Radke, and he is here tonight to join us to talk about the power of inclusion when it comes to beverages at events. Carl, come on out.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for coming. Thanks, David. How we doing? Does everybody feel good? Do we have any Bravo fans here? I see you all. Thank you. Appreciate you. Sorry, I won't talk too much. I'll let everybody.
No, it's okay. It's all right.
Just excited to be here. Thank you, honestly.
Okay. He's excited also so that you all will want to try his drinks and bring him into events, right? He was in sales, so it's all good.
I won't try to be too salesy tonight.
Yes. I'll
try. Tell me to shut up.
I'll plug it over and over and over again. Okay. All right. Up next, we have another individual who is in sales and also leads in her spare time women at AWS. Madeline, come on out. Oh yeah, so cheers. Cheers. Cheers.
Hey y'all.
Hey y'all. You work for AWS, isn't that like Seattle? And you're from San Diego.
Well, I'm from Atlanta, lived in Austin, lived in Seattle, and now I live in San Diego.
Well, you know what the good thing about
American girl.
you know what the good thing about y'all is?
It's inclusive.
Y'all means all.
It's good. She's got the white pants on.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. All right. Next up on our panel, we have the one and only with other agency who started her own sober community during the pandemic, because we all know that time was fucked up, let's be honest, all right? And 7 years sober, Alyssa May Hart. Come on out, Alyssa. Okay, amazing. We have one more guest to bring out. By the way, this power pantsuit, do you guys see this?
Hey.
Took the tags off too.
She just took them off.
Technically, I took them off.
There is a green room backstage, and now there's tags in there. That means you can't return it.
I know.
Okay, all right. Well, it's very, very, very mindful, very demure. Yes, and she. Okay, let's bring our last panelist up so that we can start this conversation. You may know her from her podcast, Eating at a Meeting. Okay, shit, you all know her from Eating at a Meeting. Tracy Stuckcraft.
All right,
Logo's out, everyone.
Okay, all right, so we're gonna get into this, and Alyssa, we're gonna send this question to you first. When we were planning this event that's been, what, 6 months in the making, we really wanted to make sure that this meant something to everybody in the audience, and that it was, that you left with a little different than when you came in the doors. So we're gonna start with why this conversation matters to you. It's okay, I'll get it. Let's talk about why this conversation matters to you. Alyssa, we're gonna go with you first, and why you think it's important to have this conversation. And feel free to share if you've been to an event where they only offer you water or soda.
Yeah, well, I think for starters, you know, there's sober inclusion at events is just like one little baby piece of it, right? And I feel like a big question I have is like, why now? You know, having spent my whole pandemic like talking about sobriety every day, meeting sober people every day, and then switching back into in-person with other when I joined that team, I can't imagine this conversation happening at IMEX with a full room even 2 years ago. But I feel like people are kind of collectively sobering up, and I think people want to be in more authentic spaces. I think people want a permission structure to show up as their full self and feel valued in spaces they show up. So I think that's why it's important to me, you know, on a macro scale. And, you know, personally, like having made this decision for my own life for 7 years, I'm choosing to show up literally as myself to everything, like for better or for worse. And I feel like when you do, yes, but you know, also for worse, it's when you learn from things instead of
there's those days. We've all had them.
Instead of being like, I'm checking out and escaping. You know, you learn from those things, but it also makes you very aware. And if if our job is a group experience, then I need to be aware of what that means to everyone else that's showing up in the room. So that's why it's important to me. I'm trying to think of, you know, we've actually talked about this. So an occasion for me, even going to like large industry conferences this year, you know, for some of the biggest companies, I'm still only offered like a soda. And I think even, you know, I'm like, really, like people need to be leading on this whenever they have the opportunity. So
one of the ones I went to was a big company, and all they had was soda and water. So I think that's a perfect segue for you, Madeline. I mean, we're talking big companies, and you're part of AWS. So let's talk about why this conversation matters to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I joined AWS 10 years ago, and I've actually been at Amazon longer than 99% of our current employees.
Wow.
We have 1.5 million employees globally, about 130,000 of those work for AWS and corporate. And this is important to me because I'm in sales, and I've been going to these huge industry technology events for over a decade now. I've been to over 50 of them. I go to SAP events, all of our AWS and Amazon events. And in my 20s, I was usually drinking. You get the free wine at 5 p.m., you go to the dinner, order more wine, you go to the club, get the vodka soda, like the whole thing. And I would just feel like shit usually, honestly, and not be very effective.
It's a comedy club. Cursing is encouraged.
Yeah, it's after hours, right? Yeah, but I went to a lot of events that way, and then, like we mentioned the pandemic in 2020, I changed a lot of my habits. I got my yoga teacher certification, started teaching yoga, changed my diet, nutrition, and with that, cut alcohol out of my life. I did like a 90-day thing, and I'm still going almost 3.5 years later.
Amazing. All right, Tracy, Carl, who wants to go first?
Tracy? That green dress deserves a moment.
So it's important to me. I mean, I'm all about sustainability, safety, and inclusion. But I mean, I stopped drinking 4.5 years ago, and I use that as a number. But I don't even really. I cut down a lot longer time frame than that. And I want to make sure. And I stopped because I didn't want to spend the money, have the drunk, hungover feeling anymore, and I didn't want the calories. And I was living by myself, and I'm like, I don't want to drink on my own. But I'm just sitting here, and we're thinking in Las Vegas, and it reminds me back to an event that I did in my old corporate job, and we were here for a trade show. And I remember one of my head sales guys showing up the next morning, like 2 hours late, and talking about how he took his client out until 2 o'clock in the morning, and they were dirty dancing, and they were drunk off their butt. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not what you need to tell me when you show up. I'm like, I need you to be here, and I need you to be focused. And
immediate CC of HR.
Right, yeah. No, I didn't do that for him, but
You teed that up very well. I'm glad that we all hung out backstage a little bit because, Carl, everyone was sharing when their last drink was. By the way, I am not sober. I mean, I am right now. But I believe in this because of how it impacts people, let alone there's 38% of the entire adult market in the US doesn't drink. But we were hanging out backstage, and I'm the outlier in this, but they were talking about their last drink. You talked about not wanting to drink while you were alone, and Carl shared when his last drink was and what the epiphany that happened.
Yeah, I mean, my last drink...
If you're comfortable sharing that, I mean, you are on reality TV, so I feel like you should be.
Yeah, no, I talk pretty openly about my ups and downs, and I describe myself as sober. I'm in recovery. I haven't had a drink in 3.75 years, so a little less than 4 years.
On the dot. Today, 3.75.
45 months. It's been really good for me. But yeah, I kind of look at it from a different way. Like the last day of my drinking was by myself in my own apartment, doing other substances as well. So funny enough, my last drink actually was a Loverboy, but I don't miss it. I like the new taste of the non-alcohol. But I think, just for today, like what's important to me and why we're here, like for the last almost 6 years have been a part of an alcohol company called Loverboy, which some of you are drinking the alcohol versions and some of the non-alcohol. About 3.5 years into that process, I realized that I needed to get some help and not drink anymore. But what's funny is working in the industry was very, very eye-opening. I was at events left and right promoting our products, but even at bars and restaurants, I had nothing to drink. I mean, whether it's a sugary soda or just the water. So I was starting to scratch my head being at an alcohol company and not having a non-alcoholic drink. So I've met a lot of people over the years, whether it's a bar, restaurant, managers, owners, bartenders. A lot of people that work in the alcohol industry actually don't drink either. I mean, there's still a lot of people that do, but, and David said a point earlier just about 30% of Americans do not drink alcohol.
38. Almost 40.
Almost 40. So, and what I started looking at that number, and I'm like, that's unbelievable. But what I started to realize is a lot of that 30%, they just live their life. They don't make noise, they don't complain, because it's been the norm the last 100 years where they go to a place and they're just expecting not to have anything for them. But, I've learned just having more options for people. It's not also for people that are just sober like me. It's people that are taking a break. How many people in this room have kids or important meetings in the morning, or they need to be focused or have their quote-unquote shit together? Non-alcoholic drinks are for people that still drink alcohol too. And that's the key number here is 94% of non-alcoholic purchases, like these products right here, 94% of these sales are actually made by people that still drink alcohol.
That would be my household. My mom buys the bourbon for her and the non-alcoholic stuff for my dad.
Exactly. Now I'll just compare it to, you think about when you go to a restaurant, they may ask you, does anybody have any allergies at this table? Right? That's for food. What about alcohol? Think about that. People are allergic to alcohol for different reasons. Lyme disease, postmenopausal, pregnancy.
Poor decisions.
Poor decisions like me. So I think it's important to recognize it's not all about the sober people. It's for your close friends and people that don't describe themselves as sober. They just want something else to drink. And I'll just add the last little note here. I was in Madison Square Garden, the world's greatest arena, a couple months ago for a concert. Yeah, shout out to the Garden. It's a Pepsi arena, so Pepsi has the contract there, which is Aquafina and obviously Pepsi products. The only thing I could have to drink at that concert was an Aquafina, which is I'm in New York City, this amazing arena at a concert, and the only thing for me and everybody else in that arena who just doesn't want to drink alcohol was probably the worst water of them all, Aquafina. Sorry, Aquafina.
Yeah, I don't know if...
There's a water guy on TikTok who actually rates waters. You should watch it. It's very eye-opening. Aquafina and Dasani.
Yeah, I hope Caesars doesn't have the exclusive with Pepsi.
Sorry, Caesars. You can go to my room.
Yeah. So you're saying IMEX was more inclusive than Madison Square Garden?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just important to have alternatives and options. Alyssa, obviously, I relate to a lot of her story, but not everybody here on this stage is necessarily considering themselves I'm in recovery, I go to AA. And that's the people we want to make sure we're including and supporting. It's not just people like us.
Yeah, so you shared some stats, and I think I'd like to dig into kind of how the market's shifting and dig into that a little more, and or if you want to talk about it as well. I'd love to To experience what, if you've been to an event where they didn't have, you just did, and you had to drink the worst water of all waters. So were there other events that you've been to where you're just like, this sucks, like there's nothing for me, and did you stay or did you leave? This is a rapid fire question. I know it's a little off the cuff.
The most recent horrible one was cheer wine and Fresca mixed together and called mocktail. Yeah.
Cheer wine and Fresca.
Yeah. He's like, oh, here, try your mocktail. I'm like, okay, great, let me have it. And I'm like, what is this? And he's like, it's cheer wine.
Did anybody else taste that before they offered it, I wonder?
Probably not. And I'm like, here, I'll just take my water. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Have you been to an event, Alyssa, where they really didn't have anything and you're like, nah, I'll just leave?
I mean, I've been to many. I think what's coming to mind for me is all the times I've gone out. Like, I think the biggest thing, even if you're trying to take a month break, like, you still want to live your life. And I remember at some point in Austin going out, and I would always buy Topo Chicos, which everyone's probably familiar with. I call it my Topo baby because I drink so many while I was out. But at some point, like, it would be cheaper to drink a PBR than a Topo Chico at some places. And I just remember like being like, it's fucking water. Like, why is the difference? But I think what I'm picking about too, like even just being out in those places, whether you're just trying to test it out, like feeling comfortable and having something in your hand is literally the biggest thing that can help ease your anxiety. And the absence of that, or it being like, a Shirley Temple or whatever, I think it is just, again, it's just like a constant othering that you just get used to. So I feel like maybe I'm kind of used to it, unfortunately.
So you're just comfortable feeling dejected and like an outlier?
Yeah, I just feel superior, honestly.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, this is not going to turn into that panel addressing that. Madeline, do you have anything you want to add, or should we jump into like where you feel like the market's going? Because like we talked about, we couldn't have this conversation probably 2 years ago.
I would just add that in my experience, I've lived in 4 states and worked in a few states, and it's quite regional as well. Now that I live in Southern California in San Diego, I don't remember the last time I went to a restaurant that didn't have an extensive non-spirit or non-alcoholic menu, which is very enjoyable to live there.
Sounds like we gotta move to San Diego.
Maybe so, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the best weather in the world, I think, so that's why it costs what it does to live there. Okay, let's talk about where the market's going. I'm sure, I mean, Carl, you started 2 businesses focused on this.
Yeah, I mean, living and breathing it, obviously.
You also have Soft Bar, which in case that you're not familiar with.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's Loverboy, which I'm a big part of. I didn't actually start Loverboy. Kyle Cook and his wife Amanda, shout out to them, I love them. They started it, but I was an investor and worked with them for the last like 5.5, 6 years. But during kind of my sobriety journey, also realizing that there wasn't a lot of options out there, I also realized that the options that are available in non-alc, there's nowhere to drink them. You know, these cool new NA products. So I started to realize that there's an opportunity to create what they call like a third space. So it's a bar and a coffee shop, but we don't serve any alcohol. And it's called Soft Bar. It's going to be opening up in New York early next year, and hopefully more locations. Yeah. So my whole thing was, you know, like I said, we're talking about creating inclusive spaces and welcoming environments. This is not a sober bar or cafe. It's just a bar and cafe. We don't have alcohol because not everybody is comfortable raising their hand or saying, hey, I'm sober. So we wanted it to be as inclusive as possible. Regardless of where you're at in your journey, you could have had a drink in the parking lot. Come on in. We just don't have alcohol. So that's, you know, kind of what I've been focused on, is trying to kind of bring more of this to people. I think a lot of us need this space and need these options just to feel like we can be more included.
Can I hop in?
Sure.
Have any of you guys heard of like the term third spaces before?
Yeah.
Some of you?
Today in my session.
Oh, perfect. Well, you should have been at Tracy's session. That's what I'm hearing. There are a lot less third spaces than there were. Like, there's less and less as time goes on. Like, people used to have bowling alleys and like other spaces that weren't bar related. Events are probably the biggest third space there is now. And so I think even that's like a big thing for us to think about, like what duty of care we have for being the gatherers of people in these third spaces to make them feel included and give them a permission structure to show up a little bit differently and show up as their full selves.
Love that. Madeline, I know you talked about, you started surveying people at your Women at AWS events. What kind of results were you getting on the alcohol interest?
Yeah. So I lead our employee resource group. We have 13 of them at Amazon. Women at Amazon is one of those. And we send out 2 quarterly surveys. And now that we're starting to go back in the office more and more, and people are going in real life to these conferences again. We're asking questions like, well, what would you commute in for? What do you want to get on an airplane to go do? What is worth leaving your family for? And in those surveys, people have been telling us that wellness and fitness and career development events and socializing is more important to them. We hear that alcohol is not necessary at events. We've been hosting events where we do have a bartender, beer and wine. It doesn't get touched, especially by women. And same with the interns this summer. They loved coming to events with just sparkling water. And so I have a lot of budget to use on other more tangible things that people have been asking.
Lover boy.
I was just going to chime in. I've heard this anecdotally from friends of mine in New York that work at financial institutions. And a lot of like the young new interns or the new hires, they do these kind of happy hours for the new employees. And they were telling me they've thrown 2 this fall already and nobody comes. And she goes, it's even more worse because we spent all this money on this alcohol that no one's actually drinking. So you're not even providing something that people are looking for, and then you're pissing money away to boot.
Yeah, that culture is changing.
And the statistic is that 44% or 43%, somewhere in there, of millennials and Gen Z have never had alcohol at all. And so you're spending that.
Shit. I was drinking all of that for millennials.
Right. And some people joke that they were hoppy, right? But like, why are you spending that? And I mean, don't do the open bar or just do the consumption bar instead, right? So you're only paying for what they actually drink. But why spend the money on it if they're doing it? And you mentioned the making sure that you have the spaces. I mean, and the HR reasons for it. In my old corporate job, the event manager I was exhibiting at the show, and the event manager was like, walk me, Tracy. And she's like, let me tell you the story that happened last night. And this woman, she had a bunch of margaritas at her event. She fell into the Gaylord fountain at the conference, split her head open. Such and such company pulled her out of the fountain, which happened to be our competitor. And I'm like, please don't be my employee. Please don't be my employee. It was my employee, and our competitor pulled her out of the fountain. And I did call HR on that one. And I'm like, and she wasn't even under my purview of being at that event, but everybody knew she worked for my company. She lost her job within 2 days.
I never want to be that person someone's telling that story about, because people a lot like talk on stage like, oh, you were at this thing and that person got super drunk.
Yeah, we threw a party here in Vegas a couple years ago, Tau Day Club, and it was a nighttime event. We were here for Snowflake Summit, and we threw the rager of a party. We were the first corporate event in Tau Beach Club, and this guy got arrested at the door because he showed up just wrecked and tried to like spear the bouncer to get past him. Like he tried to jump past him, and instead the bouncer stepped in and he just hit him and kind of fell on the ground, and they tackled him, put him in cuffs, and took him away. We found out he was an executive. He was a chief data officer from a large consulting company, we'll call it.
I know. What's interesting is like so many people, like I'm sure plenty of you have stories like this of things that have happened with clients or customers, and we have all this data, but this is still something that's not like been progressed a lot on, even though, you know, a lot of venues are making sustainability efforts, they have healthy food options now. So what's interesting to me is like there's a lot of cultural trends that are transitioning into industry with a little more effort, and this one just seems like if there's some sort of stop.
You know what? I'm going to disagree with you. You know why?
Because of Caesars?
No, because we're here. We're in this room. We're in this space right now. We are talking about this. Like you said, 2 years ago, this wouldn't have happened. 2 years ago, there was 0 mocktails on the show floor, and here we are now. Like,
yeah,
it's starting.
It is. I mean, I feel like if you're a corporation, I mean, you're responsible to put your employees in that kind of environment or an unsafe environment, especially for women. I mean, let's be honest. We've all heard these stories. I mean, I'll just add, one of the last times I was in Vegas prior to BravoCon last year, as I actually was working for a sales company, and I won an award. And I had gone out so crazy the night before. I wasn't even in the room when my name was announced. And I told this story recently on like a sober podcast, but I mean, I'm an example of that. I mean, there were other guys that got fired at this same exact sales meeting. It's like, what are we doing here? You know, so I think it's irresponsible for companies not to consider just the impact of like not offering non-alcoholic options for your employees. I mean, you hired them to perform, right? Not to get drunk.
This is to explain the ROI to the hires.
So I think one of the things that we touched on is the fact that as you go down the age chart or the generation chart, the difference in the percentage of people that aren't drinking and or haven't drank, because our workforce is changing, our event attendees are changing. I want us to remember that, you know, we're reaching out to people and trying to bring them to our events and make them feel included. And as the percentage overall grows, and as we are trying to, for the event marketers and field marketers in the room, as you're trying to build the next generation of attendees that want to keep coming back to your event, there are larger and larger proportions of people as they get younger that don't drink at all and or have never drank. That's really important, not just from an inclusion standpoint, but a budget standpoint, right? Like if you don't have to pay $120 a head for a bar package, but instead you're billing consumption, that's a very different budget you get to work with. And you can use that data by running consumption to understand how you should be ordering for things the following year. Okay, so we've thrown a bunch of terms around up here. We're going to have the discussion around vernacular and semantics. I bet you were not expecting that today.
I love a good vernacular combo.
Yeah, okay.
I've got many arguments on social media about this already, so I can't wait.
I came out here and ranted about the difference between a non-alcoholic beverage and a mocktail. When I said mocktail backstage, Carl, I just felt him clench up. I swear to God, you say that word.
I hate the word mocktail so much.
So let's throw them all out. There's mocktail, there's zero proof, there's spiritless, spirit free, which sounds like happy free, like non-alcoholic.
On a bar menu the other day, it says it was titled "On the Wagon."
On the wagon?
Yeah, that was the menu description for all the non-alcoholic.
Okay, anybody else got? We're gonna save the last one for you. Anybody have any other different ones they've heard?
For vernacular, we were even talking about people, I call myself sober, but I'm not in recovery. I just don't drink. I think there's people say they're dry, or what was yours? Straight edge. I think there's all
straight edges from
poison free and the hardcore scene.
Yeah, I think
my husband's hardcore.
She has a Sharpie of an X on her hand. That's how you know.
I'm not trying to derail the drink conversation, but I think
it's okay.
To some extent, you're getting in the weeds. I think people get in the weeds arguing about this, and I love that you don't like mocktail, but I think people don't want to feel like they're drinking like a kiddie drink. Is the thing with that. But.
Okay, and the final term, which you named a bar after.
So I learned that the other term is soft cocktail. And there's a really high-end restaurant in New York City that their whole stance is we don't start as a mocktail, it starts as a soft cocktail. We're not making fun of anything. It's intentional, it's thoughtful, it's premium. The garnish, the glass, how it's put together, the flavors, the palate. This is not something that they're just throwing together at the back. And I think it's important, there's a way to do these beverages, but in a way that still mirrors that experience that you were having before. And the bartender at 11 Madison Park, which is who I'm talking about, he's my head bartender at Soft Bar. I sat at the bar the first time I met with him, and he goes, "Carl, just because you're not drinking alcohol doesn't mean you deserve a lesser experience." Woohoo! And I literally was like,
Hold on. I want to make sure we got that on video. Just say that one more time.
Yeah, just because you're not drinking alcohol doesn't mean you deserve a lesser experience. So I would write that down. Think about all the people that you're going to host events or put things together for.
Yeah.
And that same level of elevated premium offering, I felt like I was a part of it. And having something in my hand, to everybody's point, is a big component. And when you elevate that, I felt like I was back in this kind of amazing high-end cocktail bar. And I realized that obviously I'm not drinking, but it was such an amazing experience. And I think the experience of it, you can still have a really good time with an elevated drink, and you forget that you weren't even drinking.
Well, and if it's an elevated product, even someone who's drinking will want to maybe have that too. And I think it's creating that permission structure for other people. I have people try mine all the time, and they're like, "Holy shit, that's really good." Yeah.
One thing I'm sure people have complained that it's you see a mocktail on the menu, and it's "Oh, that's expensive," and why would I spend all that money on that sugary drink? You can make a better case to charge $14 for a soft cocktail, premium, elevated. People will pay for that, not a sugary thing you throw in the back that's $14.
Well, and I was actually having this conversation with a hotel or airport bar manager a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "I am not going to replace my Kettle One for a bottle of Loverboy or whatever because I'm making $80,000 a year on it." And I said, "But I'm going to pay the same amount that you're serving a regular cocktail for." He's like, "No, you won't." I said, "I do it every day." "Well, I don't." You know, I do it as much as I can.
It's like you fly every day?
No. But now going to my, there's one restaurant in my town that has probably 7 different drinks on their cocktail menu, and on their non-alcoholic version of it. They converted that.
They just remove the alcohol, right?
They do.
It's still the same, sugary.
And some of them, well, no, they're not super sugary, and they're using the non-alcoholic spirits in there. But then I go down the street and they're like, do you want your Fresca? I'm like, no, right? Or your cran apple berry drink. Yeah.
I love the cranberry.
Yeah, cranberry. But we also have to make it, the decision about it. It is a huge market, and I know you probably know the number, how many $1 million it's projected to be.
Billions.
Billions. Thank you.
Do you have an actual number?
I have it on the slide.
The non-alc market, I mean, I think it's going to rise to like $3 billion in the next couple of years. Right. And another stat, which is kind of crazy, is Guinness, the Irish beer brand, their Guinness Zero, the 0.0 Guinness version, is on pace to outsell the regular alcoholic Guinness by 2027.
Wow.
And there's a big shift in Ireland too. I mean, you think about all Irish is typically known for big drinkers, but they've been shifting in that because of obviously what's going on, just what people understand about their body.
As long as they're holding a Guinness, they won't be ostracized.
And guess what? The Guinness Zero, I've had it in Dublin. It tastes phenomenal. And out of the tap, that experience is still there. It's awesome. So there's a lot of cool stuff.
I think they're on the mark too, because even probably 5 or 6 years ago, they also went vegan, because they also saw that trend there too. So the fact that Guinness is doing this as well really kind of epitomizes it.
I was just going to add, I think what's going to get really interesting for this industry is when all these big alcohol brands realize how important having non-alc is to maintain their alcohol business. A lot of brands will still invest in the non-alc just because it's the awareness. You know, Bud Zero looks to me like Budweiser. You know, Heineken looks like Heineken Zero to the consumer. So these big alcohol players, I mean, Kettle Ones of the world, I'm sure in the next few years, you're going to start seeing a Kettle Zero vodka.
Well, in June, no, I forgot. My friend Kate in Minneapolis is Zero Proof Collective, and she's talking to winemakers who are actually they're actually in California making the Zero Proof wine. Yep. Because they see the market and where they're going, and they want to make sure that they're on the shelf.
And it is a wildly expensive process to make zero.
You know who's taking a beating in alcohol sales? Wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're panicking and trying to figure out how to capture that market still.
I was fortunate enough to go on a FAM in Sonoma. And the last day they took us to the Taste of Sonoma, which is, there's 100 wineries there. And I said, I would love to talk to a winemaker that's here about what the challenges are around non-alcoholic wine, because non-alcoholic beer is pretty good. It tastes like regular beer. Non-alcoholic wine is mostly trash.
I had a rosé one recently, and it had been like, I don't know, over 6 years since I'd had wine, and I was like, was wine this bad?
Yeah, but it's because of the alkalization process. Yep. Okay. All right. I kind of made that up.
No, you got it.
I'm glad I got it right. I think I'm learning things by osmosis at this point. It's because the alcohol content is so much higher, it takes a lot more work. And when they can get $200 out of a bottle of wine, let alone they have to wait a year for their product to figure out if they're going to be able to have a good wine or not. So they're like, it's just, the shift isn't happening yet. And what's crazy is that was like 6 months ago. So the fact that it's already changed is amazing.
Yeah, I get a lot of the industry reports on the alcohol side, and
I'd hope so.
I'm not trying to beat on the alcohol industry. It's just the consumers are deciding, and alcohol is trying to figure out how to shift. We're all making these choices every day, but starting to scream a little bit louder for more options.
Yeah.
I'm still like, I get on an airplane today on Delta. If I want anything other than the Pepsi or Coca-Cola products, like, it's just water.
They're Coke.
So like, I mean, I'm hoping airlines start.
Atlanta. Definitely Coke. Okay, Madeline, you are, I didn't get any of your thoughts on, are there terms that you like, dislike around non-alcoholic, mocktail, etc.? No?
I just like seeing any of it on the menu.
Yeah, I think what we can all agree on, and every non-drinker in here, is that if you don't want to have a drink, you want something different that makes you feel like you're having a drink, that feels like you're part of the event, and that isn't containing more grams of sugar than a frickin' soda.
And a giant, literally, you might as well just have a giant pixie stick, like the one kids carry.
Yeah, just because I'm not drinking alcohol doesn't mean I want to replace it with sugar and carbs.
Yeah.
Say that again.
Speaking of which, yeah, these are 10 calories.
Okay, so the Lover Boys that you guys are having, both alcohol and the non-alcohol are both, there's 0 sugar. So I think the peach is maybe 1 gram of sugar, but very low calorie, light and refreshing. Again, the goal with our brand, what we were doing is we wanted to remove that sugar so you can still drink it without guilt, without, any regrets, as we like to say.
Perfect. Okay, so I think we've done our job converting everybody to the cult of inclusion of sobriety. I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, so cults are near and dear to my heart.
You should do a panel on that.
I was like, yeah, we're all going to convert you right now, so pay attention.
So, but what I want to talk about, because I've spent a lot of time in operations and I've been in the weeds, and there was an email I got, and some of you may have gotten this email, so please don't say their name. I got an email, so like, oh, come to our happy hour at our booth. And I said, great, are there going to be mocktails there? And they said, we'll have non-alcoholic options. And I said, yeah, but are they club soda and juice? And they said, yeah, well, due to the catering department at Mandalay Bay, bop, 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 bop. And I was like, oh, so you phoned it in. So we talked about this specifically because, Carl, you and I weren't friends yet, so we are now. I'll text you later.
Yeah, I hope we're friends.
We talked about how to overcome that, because let's say you're all now in the cult of inclusion, right? And you're like, this is great, I want to do this, but I go to a venue and they're non-alcoholic, 0 proof, soft cocktail, mocktail, whatever you want to call it, options are just terrible. And they're like, that's all we got, take it or leave it. We have 3 old duels that have been sitting in a cooler for 6 months, and that's it. Oh, my fun story, I do want to share this because it was at an industry event. I went to an industry event, went to the welcome happy hour. I was like, oh, do you have any non-alcoholic beer? Because that's usually pretty safe at events, they almost always have it. And they're like, yeah, we have 2. And I'm like, great, what are they? And he goes, no, we have 2 cans of non-alcoholic beer. I was like, oh, it's the same, but there's 2. Okay, so Tracy, we're gonna start with you. How do we get past this nonsense of take it or leave it, this is all we offer?
Well, first of all, we have to ask the questions when we're doing our RFP and making sure that we have that. But I mean,
they're cult members now, it's too late.
Okay, fine. So, all right, we're asking that question, we already have it on there. I mean, this summer I went to an event, or I produced an event, managed the food and beverage, and I went to the bar. What do you have? Nothing. And I talked to the CSM and I said, what do you have? And she's like, well, we don't have that because nobody requests it when we have it on the bar or at our bars. And I'm like, it's because you don't have it on the damn bars to know that it's available for me to drink. And what I did is I talked to the food and beverage director and I said, can I just get this? And he said, yeah. So I did one of the delivery services and I said, go to this liquor store and pick it up, and he brought it to me, and I got some I think it was Ritual or a different brand, Spirit Free, yeah. And brought it to the bar, and they served it the first night for me, and made me and a couple of my colleagues some drinks. And then the bar manager decided to make her own cocktails on mocktails or non-alcoholic drinks on her own. And they were selling them for $16, but we sold probably 20 per night, which I'm good with that, right? But the thing is with the drinks is that they're not yet distributed through food and beverage companies. So you have to get them through the liquor stores or through the Amazon.
You can buy Lover Boy on Amazon.
Yes.
Question for you though, like in a future event use case, would you, if you're including that in the RFP, would that be a part of your F&B negotiation if you're providing it yourself? How would you do that?
I would say this is what I need on my bar. and I want it to be provided. And if you don't provide it, then yes, I'm gonna bring it.
So something Tracy gave me, you gave me some verbiage about basically in your RFP, you say, if your food and beverage menus don't meet our guests' requirements, the client reserves the right to supplement with their own items. Yeah.
Thanks, Drew.
Oh, you can clap for that. I'm good with that. Thank you. That also initiates a conversation immediately because they're like, what the fuck? Are you kidding me? Like, you're going to bring in your own food? Yeah, if your food is trash, we're going to do that. And they're like, okay. And that initiates the conversation and the dialogue to fix this.
And you could also include like an ask to do a drink tasting as part of your site, part of your site process.
An alcohol-free drink tasting, because you know they're going to do the like show up with champagne and everything else and at the site inspection.
Yeah, and that probably is that. And I did meet somebody, I'm at the JW Austin next April. And I was on my site visit last week, or whatever it was, and he's like, oh no, they're actually in partnership with Ritual. And they are doing a whole program with Ritual to create the different...
What's Ritual?
It's a brand of...
Ritual is a non-alcoholic spirit product. It's actually backed by Diageo, which owns Casamigos and other large alcohol brands.
Okay, cool.
They've got a tequila and a gin and things like that. And so they're putting all of the bartenders through that training.
And the reason I said Diageo, they have a lot of money, which is good because they'll invest in Ritual's non-alcohol programming, education, and all the event stuff.
But they came to me and said, okay, and it helped somehow. Is Tyler Davidson here? Somewhere he read that article that I wrote and about food and beverage, and the general manager's like, hey, I read that article, and they came to me with their list of what we're doing based on what I had written about. So I'm excited that they have that in going forward, but we have to ask those questions up front.
Awesome. Has anyone ever like skirted the rules and just bought stuff and sent it to the venue? Like, so let's say you had this tonight and you loved it.
You could say it sucks. I know it doesn't.
And you wanted it at your event. Is there like, could you just order it and ship it? Are there laws against ordering the non-alcoholic version?
What is the venue learn from that? It would be my question. Like, I think, I'm like an ask for forgiveness, not permission person too, but what, like, if your goal is not just for your program, but for the next program that comes into the hotel, to try to like push some sort of domino forward, like have the difficult conversation with the venue, like you would about, if sustainability, if that's become an important topic for your company.
Well, and my friend Thomas said to me a couple of weeks ago when I was asking him about this, because I reached out to a variety of different catering managers, and he's like, it's just bullshit, just buy it. Just bring it in and serve it. And he's doing that at his venues, or he's not there anymore, but he's just bringing it in and making it, and anybody that's telling you that they can't do it is full of shit.
Yeah, they just don't want to do the work.
They don't want to do the work.
I've brought in, obviously we have this today, but pretty much anywhere I go, I bring a 6-pack of Loverboy non-alc just to be safe. Because sometimes you just have to do what Alyssa said and ask for forgiveness. I think over time people will learn that they're not supporting these types of initiatives. They're going to lose out on that business. People are going to go to other places to host your events.
Hotels are on sites now, like, without being asked, giving their sustainability efforts and like talking about wellness initiatives they have. So I think this might be a mirror for them to make that a part of that. They're proactively saying, you want to have any beverage programming, we don't have it on site yet, but you could bring it in yourself if there's a product that you like.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was speaking with our current CEO of AWS, Matt Garvin, recently about budget, and we have a program we send a lot of women to these big industry conferences. We were talking about how many tickets allocations we're going to give this year, and a big part of the conversation, he was like, hey, it's so hard for us to tell what these employees are getting out of these conferences. It's really hard to tell the ROI, the impact, the value of paying thousands of dollars for the ticket, the pass, getting them there. And so we know also that people who are hungover and drunk aren't working as hard. They aren't showing up for the 8 a.m. session. They aren't engaged and energized. So that's the conversation we've been having as well.
Thanks for that plug.
Well, I would just add too, like, we all work our asses off to do this. Like, don't you want people like alert to enjoy it?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think that brings us to a close here. We are at time. I want to thank all of you for making the time. Carl for flying in.
Yeah.
Madeline, you flew in as well, right? Never. Were you
Quick
here?
hop from San Diego.
Okay, all right, still. Yeah, well, you both flew in for IMEX in general, but this was a special occasion. I'd like to give everyone in the room a big round of applause.
Yeah, thank you guys.
If nobody showed up to this conversation would be dead. Like, we couldn't keep this stuff going. So by the fact that all of you came, probably to all get pictures with Carl. But regardless, you're here, and so thank you for making the effort. This shows the value of this conversation and the importance of continuing to have it. So with that, I'd like to I'll let you know that they're all going to be here for questions, and they're going to hang out afterwards. I know we held up in the green room to make the grand entrances and whatnot, so we're going to hang out and mix and mingle. And thank you, everybody, for coming. Make sure you reach out to your Caesar sales rep to join us on the roadshow in those 7 cities. Thank you,
The
everybody.
Return on Wellness podcast.
Thank you guys.
That's it. We're done. DJ Graffiti, take it away.
Play that shit, DJ Graffiti.
Thank you so much for joining Return on Wellness. For help integrating these ideas, please scan the QR code. We sincerely hope you join us for our next episode of Return on Wellness.